Well, joining me to discuss today's developments is news analyst Marco Vicenzino. Thank you very much for coming in to us here at Arise. I can foresee, as I'm sure you can, quite a few problems here. Libya has its own set of problems, but without Libya's cooperation, how is this going to work?
Very, very difficult, because obviously all these ships are taking off, these vessels are taking off from the western side of Libya. And it's in the western side of Libya where there's a government in control that's internationally recognized, involved in a civil war with an internationally recognized government that sits in Tobruk in the east of the country. So the division within Libya itself is what is, to a certain extent, is the major catalyst. There are other sources such as poverty, war, oppression, why these individuals are coming, other sources. But from a practical term, practical perspective, you're looking is that they're taking off from the western side of Libya. And those areas are controlled by militias who are, you can say to a certain extent, are cooperating and collaborating with the smugglers. The smugglers would not be able to operate. These human traffickers would not be able to operate without local assistance. And there's very much a profit incentive driving it also. So there are many problems in Libya. I mean, there's a civil war. That's what's happening, and basically, and there's a profit incentive involved, and there's many layers and many issues. And unless, in my opinion, in the short term, there can be some kind of remedying to that. Both sides in the civil war, the recognized government and the one that's not recognized are currently in Morocco, and for months have been trying to negotiate a national unity government under UN auspices, and still they've not come to a successful conclusion. Is
that at all possible, though, a remedy to that situation? Are you ever going to get a cohesive government in Libya to make this plan work?
Getting a full cohesive government won't be easy, hence the amount of time that's taken to form one. But the idea is that at least to have something that's formed that can at least protect its borders. There'll be many issues to be disputed internally, and they'll go on for a very long time, but at least to come to some sort of conclusion, unify the armed forces, and be able to control their borders. And we're not just talking about their beaches where the vessels take off from Italy. They're all talking about controlling their borders with Tunisia to the west, Egypt to the east, and to its south also. These borders are just practically porous.
And we saw Federica Mogherini there make really a heartfelt plea. We've got to remember that hundreds and thousands of migrants are dying on these journeys. Why does the EU need UN approval for this?
Basically, if they want to use force, anything regarding the use of force falls under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. Now, it's not to say that there haven't been times when certain countries or organizations have acted without UN authorization under Chapter 7. If you look, for example, the war in Kosovo in the late 90s, NATO ultimately acted without UN authorization. That questioned the legitimacy of the action itself. It's better to have the official UN Security Council resolution than not to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that states have not acted without it. I think the 28 member states of the European Union, in a situation like this, it would be difficult for them to act without a UN Security Council resolution.
And you mentioned the 28 members. Are all 28 in agreement with what should be done?
Exactly not. They're not in agreement what should be done in terms of how to stem the issue, not to resolve it, but at least to stem the flow. And then internally, they're struggling as we speak. There's many member states that want to overhaul European migration policy, whereby there would be a European-wide quota system, which each member state would have to accept a minimum amount of migrants.
And that's going to be very contentious for some countries.
That's completely what's happening. That's the division. It's a massive debate taking place within the European Union, whereby there's certain states, such as the states of Eastern Europe and the UK in particular. I mean, Prime Minister Cameron won with an overwhelming majority. He has a mandate from his people, and he wants to narrow the scope of immigration into the UK. And then in Eastern Europe, where many countries are experiencing economic difficulties, they don't possess the resources that many Western European countries. And from their perspective, they're struggling with their own economies and trying to at least create jobs for their own people. From their perspective, they're not in a position to assume anymore. While Germany and the southern European countries are taking more for burden sharing, particularly the southern flank of Europe, because their resources are limited and they're heavily, they've been struck by the 2008 crisis, which keeps going on in Greece, Spain, Italy, Malta also. And Germany has been quite supportive of the Mediterranean countries. And Germany is the country in Europe which takes the most migrants, particularly from the war in Syria. And also Sweden has been very generous with the migration policy.
Could Brussels push this through? Could Brussels make certain countries take their quota?
That's what they're trying to do right now. That's the debate that's taking place. Is that this would be a directive that would be, would be created, come from Brussels, would emanate from Brussels, and basically a directive to go out to all the member states. Basically, you're all member states of the European Union. We have to do burden sharing, but once again, it's a division between those who want greater say in terms of national decision-making as opposed from the center in Brussels. So this whole debate goes on, not just in migration, it goes on in various levels of the European Union.
And of course, time is of the essence here. We're heading into the summer period, calmer seas, clear skies. There are going to be many more migrants trying to make it across the seas. What's the period of time we're looking at here for anything to be resolved?
Weeks, if not months. This will be very difficult. When it comes to the issue of burden sharing of migrants in Europe, there'll probably be paralysis for the foreseeable future. In terms of what will be the scenario regarding the migrant flow will be increased. I mean, just one country in particular, look at Greece. They're expecting it to triple in Greece, a country with extremely limited resources. Italy is going to go up also, and in this sense, the other member states of Europe, such as the UK and Germany, are going to they've tripled the whole Frontex, the border patrol of Europe, the Frontex budget. They've tripled it. So in terms of search and rescue, there is no division in Europe. They all agree that these people there needs to be a search and rescue effort. But the problem is once you save them and you bring them on shore into Italy, what happens after that? That's where the debate lies.
Okay, Marco Vicenzino, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.